Welcome to Educator Insights, the podcast from Magic EdTech, where we explore the ideas and innovations shaping the future of learning. Today's episode is a special collaboration with the Talent Lab podcast. I'm your host, Husaina Jadliwala, and I'm thrilled to be joined by two incredible voices who are now rethinking how people enter and thrive in tech careers. First, we have Michael Oppong, Director of Alumni Success at the Marcy Lab School and co-host of the Talent Lab podcast. And alongside him, we have Tom Riendo, Vice President of Workforce and Learning Skills here at Magic EdTech. Thank you both so much for being here. Michael, Tom, I would like to pass it to you to introduce yourselves in your own words and share a little about the work you're doing right now.
Thanks so much for having me here. I'm Michael Oppong, co-founder of Talent Lab Solutions alongside Chris Blackett. At Talent Labs, we are building a community of folks who are passionate about the intersection of education, technology, equity, and workforce development. I am also the Director of Alumni Success at the Marcy Lab School. At Marcy, we provide a tuition-free college alternative to young people who are looking to enter careers in technology, specifically in software engineering and data analytics.
Yes, thank you, Husaina. I have spent my more than 30 years working with career learners. And just to give a little context to what that means for me here at Magic, I think of any workforce-related conversation from an early memory that I had as an academic advisor at what's now Excelsior University, where I had students on the phone early in the spring in tears because they were so focused on where they needed to get to in their career, and being able to help them move that along, and then seeing them at graduation with their kids holding up their yay mom signs. That's something I've never forgotten. So translating into what we do at Magic, we're helping learning companies of all kinds, and colleges and universities and publishers either create new digital learning content, enhance the content that they have, or help them manage and support their learning platforms.
Thank you so much, Tom. And you know, that's a good segue into starting with the first discussion point, which is the big picture. There's been a lot of debate lately about the value of a college degree. So when you both think about how people enter tech today, what feels broken about the old system, and what do you see starting to take its place? Michael, if you want to go ahead first.
Yeah, I think the truth is that the college market has been bloated for some time. I think much of that is because there's a lot of money being made. And so as a result, there are a number of institutions that are taking advantage of a market of people, or a market of young people who have been told all their lives that college is the only way. And so we've recently seen kind of more things come to light. Enrollment is down at many institutions, and oftentimes people aren't getting the value that they believe they would get out of these institutions, except for many of the elite ones. And so in terms of what feels broken, to me, is that, colleges are not providing value. A lot of them are moving way too slow and aren't able to keep up with the changes of the tech industry. I know at the Marcy Lab School, we operate like a startup, right? So we are constantly learning, constantly tweaking, constantly changing things so we can best support our fellows and our alumni as they look to enter the tech industry. This is going to be even more important with the rise of artificial intelligence, which is moving at a rapid pace.
Of course. Yeah.
And so, these institutions, the ones that still exist and the ones that will be open, because I think many of them are closing, will need to adapt quickly in order to best support the people who are learning in their institutions.
No, that's totally fair. I was going to go into that next, but Tom, if you have anything to add to that first.
Yeah, I would add that a lot of what I think is going on that we would call broken is actually a mismatch between what the learner actually needs, what's going to advance their life, what's going to set them on a path to lifelong learning, and what's going to help them advance in their career, and what the expectation of the institution is. That translates into both wasted time, but also, the major elephant in the room is it's creating tremendous wasted cost for learners, and fixing that problem, making things more relevant, making them more focused, will not only create more value for students, but also will save them money. And I think it's hard to look at what's going on and not think about the tremendous costs and debt that a lot of students are taking on right now.
Exactly. I mean, Michael, you rightfully spoke about AI as well. It's really changing how people learn, build, and obviously how they get hired. So let's move into what you think this shift is going to do in terms of reshaping what it means to be job ready, especially in tech today.
Yeah, I can kick us off. I think the expectations are much higher from employers, and I see this at my work with Marcy. Employers have a much higher baseline than they did previously, and so specifically when it comes to anyone entering the tech industry right now, one of the most important things will be your durable skills. Some people call these soft skills, professional skills. These have always been important. But as artificial intelligence takes more ownership over kind of the everyday task, those durable skills around communication and collaboration are much more important.
Those soft skills, basically.
Yes, those soft skills. And so, as institutions think about how to prepare their young people, they need to think about how they can help them develop those durable skills.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I would say that with all of the promise of AI, and we're already starting to see this, especially in career and technical education, and I think we're going to see just incredible advances. It doesn't change what it means to be in the world of work, and so especially when you're thinking of younger learners, what do they need to be part of a professional organization, those durable skills? But it's also what's advancing them in terms of real world. I think a lot of our education, when it's not working, can be too theoretical and not relevant. So having opportunities that are more project based, having ways to collaborate that are more like the professional world, I think especially for tech workers, is going to become essential. And that potentially could help to solve the issue for students entering the workforce who don't necessarily have a lot of experience, if they have projects that they've worked on, if they have real credentials that can speak to that, and real artifacts that show the work that they've done and the ideas that they have. I think that could make them far more valuable to employers than simply saying, hey, I have a Bachelor of Science in X.
Right. And, honestly, I think you've answered the next part, which I was going into as well, which was, what really matters more than a diploma right now: soft skills, real life application of what you're doing. Just all of that, I think, does matter more. And it's something I've also been thinking about a lot, just, looking at my nieces, for example, and wondering what future really holds for them. But despite that, even with new pathways opening up, we know that access isn't equal. So getting into tech is still harder for some people than others. How can we make sure that the new ways of learning, whether it's online programs or it's AI tools, they actually open doors instead of widening the gaps?
And Michael, I'm sure the work that you're doing at Marcy Labs, that you want to dive into this. I would just say, as the parent of a college senior, that what I think is going to help him the most, and what's going to help other learners, is that opportunity to actually dive into the work, to have those projects, to create that portfolio. I worry that the privilege of having the latest and greatest hardware tools at home will unfairly advantage some students over others, but schools can help close that gap by helping create the actual projects that will show talent, that will nurture talent, that will build up talent. Those opportunities to collaborate with other learners and build out those artifacts, I think, are what's going to help level the playing field. But Michael, I'd love to hear from you on the work you're doing and how we can take a simple idea and actually make it much deeper and richer.
Yeah, I think one of the most amazing things about the Marcy Lab School is that it's free, comes at no cost to the learners. And, we know that historically there's lots of boot camps who charge a ton of money to access opportunity of getting into the tech industry. I think with AI tools and other things of that nature, we already see that there are some restrictions based on how much you can pay to use a tool, right? I use Claude all the time, and I love Claude, but I'm only able to use it to a certain extent each day, right? Or else I run out of credits. And so making sure that there are programs and opportunities that are free and accessible to all types of people, all people from different demographics is incredibly important. And so, Marcy is a good example of that. There's some apprenticeship programs that make things more accessible to different types of people. There are a few fellowships that make things more accessible. And in all these programs and with all these tools, you really have to teach people how to learn and also give them access to these tools.
Michael, your work is really at Marcy Lab School is really a powerful example of talent, coming from everywhere. And what you mentioned makes a lot of sense. But many many employers still default to traditional credentials. So how can we get, schools, ed tech companies, or tech companies in general, and employers kind of work together to help more people get the recognition they deserve outside of the traditional credentials that, may not necessarily be as useful going forward?
Yeah, I think when this is most successful, everyone is working together. Work cannot be done in isolation. It takes all people from different sides of the market to come together and work towards this goal, right? So it's a consortium of sorts. And so this allows for like very steady and dynamic communication between all these parties. So everyone is getting what they need and everyone is satisfied, right? And so I've seen this be most successful when at Marcy, our employer partners are, meeting with us, are able to offer us feedback so we can improve. We're able to offer them feedback so they can improve their processes and the way they hire. And that's when it works the best, when there's constant communication between all parties and we're all working towards the same goal.
Do you see that happening enough?
No, definitely not happening enough. I think this is one of the major limiting factors to kind of supporting this work and making sure that companies know and can access talent from everywhere. But this is something that definitely needs to happen more often. I'm excited to do that work and work for any employers who are interested in continuing that work.
That makes sense. Tom, if you wanted to add anything to that.
Yeah, and I would say there are good examples of employers who are partnered with institutions. I think in the community college space, for example, there are good examples where the learning is built with the employer from the beginning. What are the needs for the local geography? What does the community actually want? And building the program that way, as opposed to Field of Dreams approach where you build out several new programs and hope that that's going to lead to jobs and hope that employers will come, when the reality is that may not be the case. And if you're constantly speculating, you're not actually meeting the needs of your community. I think that's absolutely essential. But to Michael's point, we need a lot more of that. And we're just at the beginnings of doing that. But I think if we highlight the organizations that are doing that really well, that will help us move to a more effective workforce learning.
Yeah, and what we're discussing right now is, moving away from how things have been to how things should be. So that's kind of what we're discussing. But and we are reaching towards the end of the conversation. But I think what we should do is end with a thought experiment. So let's imagine that things have not been happening the way they have so far. So if you could redesign the way people get into tech careers today with the landscape that we see today, what would that look like? What's the very first thing that you would change?
Do you want to take that first?
Yes, I can take that first. So I think it's a 3-step process. It's probably more nuanced than that, but the 3 buckets I see are first being exposure, and this is employer-led exposure. So employers need to take an active role in opening up, the veil or the curtains of what these opportunities are. When I was growing up, I only knew of a few careers: doctor, teacher, engineer, lawyer. I had no idea that a software engineer even existed. And now I know about product managers and project managers and all these different roles and opportunities that exist. And there are many young people out there who don't know about these careers. So I think employers need to take a more active role in creating exposure around the opportunities that exist in these industries, because many people, depending on where they grew up or their demographics, may not know that these roles exist. And by the time they figure it out later on in their journeys, they're kind of at a bit of a disadvantage. Next is kind of access, which I've spoken about before. There needs to be more access to these opportunities. I think one major way this can be improved is just removing the college requirement, right, in applications. And so that's one way that more access can be provided for folks. And then another huge barrier that many people have is, a lot of people get jobs by referrals, right? And there are so many people who don't have access to, their uncle or their friend or their fraternity brother who can refer them to a Meta or a Google or wherever it may be. So I know this is tough, and I know the challenges that folks who are recruiting have to go through to find the right candidates, but wondering how we can make sure that networking, referrals are not the limiting factors to someone accessing a job or a career that can change their lives.
Yeah, I would add to that. Employers need ROI, right? None of this works if we're not actually delivering the learning that is going to help someone advance their career, that's going to help the organization that's hiring them advance their mission. So, starting from that point, more opportunities to break the barriers of a strict 7-period day during your primary and secondary education, to break out of some of the strict structures that really served an earlier time well, but maybe don't now, to allow students to have more of a competency-based education, to allow them to create artifacts, to collaborate with each other. I know we're making some really good strides on that, and things are incredibly different than they were certainly when I was an undergraduate. But if you can build out those artifacts to show employers, yes, they have the skills that you're looking for, I think you create opportunity through that. And then the label you put on that artifact doesn't really matter at that point if that person is ready to start their career and ready to create value for their employer. But none of that happens if it's restricted to those of us who have all the privilege and all the opportunities. I think that's exactly right. And that is, rolling this back, I think that is where it's essential that we create those good partnerships between employers and learning institutions so that we can lift up everyone.
Yeah. That's very fair, Tom. Sorry, go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, in the spirit of what time Tom said earlier, I do want to shout out some employer partners who are doing great work. We recently had an event with Google where they invited us to their one of their offices in Soho, and we had a full day where we got to speak with software engineers, we got to tackle some problems, and we got to hear from folks who had come from alternative backgrounds and get into the industry. It was really inspiring for our young people. We have a partnership with Mizuho, and they have an apprenticeship program. So I think apprenticeships are such a critical tool for getting people into careers because they allows them to learn and also work, right? And then finally, we have a partnership with Palo Alto, and so they've done a great job of supporting our alumni and fellows in getting into tech careers. And so I want to shout out all the people who are doing such great work. And I'm excited for more people to do similar work and take similar actions to support a more equitable tech industry.
And that's amazing. And thank you so much for sharing all of that. I just wanted to note that it's true. I think back at when I was thinking about what to do while I was still in school, there was just these buckets of careers that, Michael, that you mentioned. And I think this ages all three of us when we say that, but but it's true. It's good that there are different pathways that students can take, but the awareness for that needs to be reached. So again, this has been such a rich conversation. Thank you both for sharing your insights. It's really clear that rethinking pathways into tech isn't just about skills. It's about equity, recognition, and collaboration, basically across the whole ecosystem. But before we close, I'd like to give each of you a chance to share any final thoughts or thank yous.
Yeah, Husseina, thank you so much for this opportunity. I want to talk about those soft skills because I think that the naming of that might downplay how important they are. I think especially, let's acknowledge coming out of COVID that we all took a hit and spending our lives on learning on Zoom, if we were even able to, wasn't necessarily ideal. And when I talk to education leaders, they have sounded a pretty similar theme, regardless of what their organization did, and that was that they weren't worried about their students' academic achievement, but they were worried about their social readiness. And so those soft skills are actually incredibly important because they're things like empathy. They're things like being able to work in a team collaboratively. For as people advance in their careers, building up those skills to be able to lead and coach your teammates. That basic social IQ is essential, and we can't lose that in our design for these programs.
Yes, I want to thank you all for having me as well. I think a few things I think about. I think education and technology are great equalizers, but they can also have the adverse effect if not done well, right? And so I want to make sure that as companies are thinking about how to use artificial intelligence to create more profits or create a better business, they're also thinking about how they can bring in people who have not existed in those spaces before or have not existed as much in those spaces before to bring the ideas and bring the tools and bring the products that can best support the world and make everyone have a better quality of living.
Thank you for sharing those final thoughts as well. Michael, Tom, thank you so much for joining me on Educator Insights. And thank you to our listeners for tuning in to this special collaboration with the Talent Lab podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe and share it with a colleague or friend who cares about the future of tech careers. Until next time, I'm Husseina Jadliwala, and this has been Educator Insights.